If you are starting a vertical farm and don't know where to begin or which technology would suit your needs, then reach out to the experts at Cultivated. As indoor farm brokers, they help connect you to the right technology and ensure your project is successful. Best of all, their service is free because they work on behalf of their partners. Visit cultivated.com to learn more. And that's spelled cultivatd.com, or click the link in the show notes.
Honestly, because it was very corporate and I saw the corporate ladder, and a corporate ceiling. And I just decided, at that time I was married with children hadn't come yet and everything, but I was getting married. And we saw an opportunity. My wife was working in the same industry. That's where I met her. And we had an opportunity where she had a job and we thought, well, I didn't want to do the corporate thing anymore. Can we just try and start a little company? And it worked.
Welcome to the Vertical Farming Podcast, weekly conversations with fascinating CEOs, founders, and AgTech visionaries. Join us every week as we dive deep into the world of vertical farming with your host, Harry Duran.
Vertical Farming Podcast, Season 5. Welcome back. First-time listeners, you are in the right place if you're looking for a show where we speak to fascinating CEOs and founders of the leading vertical farming companies from around the world. I'm your host, Harry Duran. In case you missed last week's episode, we spoke to Stephen Eves, the CEO and founder of VoltServer. And Stephen joined the show to share over 20 years of experience in the energy industry, his passion for doing things that I've never done before, and why and how he ended up being an expert in battery management, power electronics, and energy infrastructure. He has 15 patents issued or pending related to energy storage and power conversion. As you might imagine, we geeked out a lot about electricity and power and the need for that in the vertical farming industry. We talk about the origin story of VoltServer and the technology behind digital electricity. I had the pleasure of meeting Stephen at Indoor Ag Tech NYC last week. I met Stephen and his brother James, had a blast. I'll be talking more about the event, and to be honest, so excited with the opportunities that happened as a result of Indoor AgCon NYC. So shout out to them for partnering with me, and probably lined up close to 20 new interviews. So it's going to be interesting. I got to get everything in order and do my outreach, but I'm really excited about the opportunities that are there to tell those stories. This week, we keep the stories going with Brian Sullivan, the CEO of Indoor AgCon. Speaking of conferences, I was at Indoor AgCon in Las Vegas, my first vertical farming conference, and I really had a blast, and I'm sure I'll be making it out there next year. He joins the show to share his experience in event management and what led him to acquire Indoor AgCon, one of the premier trade show and conferences for indoor vertical farming and CEA. In this episode, we discuss the highs and lows of the events industry, the resilience Brian showed through the course of a pandemic, and the importance Brian places on problem solving and fostering a familial-type culture among his team. Very interested to have this conversation, as I wanted to know what it is that he saw in terms of the opportunities in this industry, and the conversation does not disappoint. This episode is brought to you by the Vertical Farming Weekly Newsletter. Each week, our team member Noah brings you the latest and greatest in the world of vertical farming. It's also how you're notified when new episodes are available, so please sign up today at verticalfarmingweekly.com. If you enjoyed this episode or past episodes, I'd love it if you leave a rating and a review at ratethispodcast.com/VFB. I'd love to read yours out next. The show has been growing steadily, but I want to make a heartfelt request to you as the listener. If this is a new show for you, or if you are a longtime listener, if you're getting value from these episodes, one of the best ways to increase the listenership of a show is when someone who is listening to the show currently recommends it to a friend. So if you are in this space and you're getting value, I'd love it if you just recommend it to one person this week. Vertical Farming Podcast. We love to see those listenership numbers grow over the course of the weeks and the months, and I appreciate your help in getting us there. Okay, let's jump into this conversation with Brian Sullivan. So Brian Sullivan, CEO of Indoor AgCon, thank you so much for joining me on the Vertical Farming Podcast.
Yeah, great to see you today.
A special shout out to Suzanne from Indoor AgCon who connected us. I was able to attend my first Indoor AgCon at my first vertical farming conference ever in Las Vegas. And I'm pretty new to the space, started the show in 2020, but it was a really fun experience. And then we were chatting because we were doing a little bit of sponsorship with the event. And I'm always interested in, as regular listeners will know, in origin stories. And I thought, well, let's get Brian on and let's see how this all got started. But maybe for the benefit of the listener, where's home for you right now?
Well, first of all, you mentioned Suzanne Pruitt, so I just have to say, Suzanne, the best thing she does is tell me no, and so it's great. She really kind of keeps a guide on us embedded in the industry, so it's really good. But my origin is I've been a special event producer for many years, and I live in Trumbull, Connecticut, I'm about halfway between New York City and Boston, so we're in and out of those cities quite often.
I know of Trumbull. I grew up in Yonkers, so home is Minneapolis now, but I grew up in Yonkers, New York, so I'm very familiar with the Northeast.
You're right. That was right down the street. I can actually be on 42nd Street in an hour, so it's we go through Yonkers to get there. So it's I love it.
Yeah, and the beauty of that corridor is the train system, like the Metro North commuter railroad train. You don't have to live in the city to have the city within, like to your point, an hour's reach away. And so it's really nice between Connecticut and upstate New York.
Yeah, 1 hour to 42nd Street. I can take a 10-minute drive to Fairfield, Connecticut, get on the train, and then if you get the express trains, you can get a local, which will take you longer, but in 1 hour, you can be on 42nd Street. Literally in Times, a couple blocks away is Times Square, and you're really sitting in the heart of Manhattan.
Did you grow up in Connecticut?
I did. My parents were born one street apart from each other in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and they moved to Trumbull, Connecticut. And I am from a large family. I'm number 5 of 8 kids. So we do big golf outings and things that we call dozens of cousins because we literally have dozens of cousins. And so where I was brought up is really only about a mile away from me, and all my family is in and around here. We've all kind of left and come back, but somehow we've all ended up, back very close.
Do you remember the first time or your first foray into New York City?
I do. That's when I was in my 16, 17, 18 years old, and I'm not sure we tell those stories in public anymore. So, because the pack I ran with.
I say that because I grew up in Yonkers, and for those who don't know, there's the 5 boroughs. There's Manhattan, which everyone is most familiar with, and then you have the Bronx. And then once you leave the Bronx, you're in Yonkers, so it's the first city outside of Manhattan. So New York City was my backyard, and I was just like, there's parts of Yonkers is very hilly, so there's parts of Yonkers where you can see New York City, you can see the skyline. And so it was beckoning to me. And I do remember, like, always, as soon as I get my driver's license, I was like, I have to go check it out. And the trains make it easy too. So it energetically, it was just a fun experience. And I remember the feeling, and I still love big cities. I've lived in LA as well. There's something about stepping into New York City where you feel like the pulse and the energy of the city, which I really enjoy.
It's the same story, Harry, that I had. I'm a little further away on it, but the excitement of going into the city and being a part of the beating heart was always kind of a thrill. You would go in, hang out, and actually it could be home before morning at times. So yeah. So, before the sun came up, sometimes.
What's funny about that railroad system, the Metro North, is the last one out of Grand Central is midnight or 1. And if you missed it, you'd have to hang out in Grand Central until 6 a.m.
And they didn't have Uber back in those days.
Just very expensive cabs.
Yes, exactly. Oh, too funny.
So how did you get into the events business? Is that something that you studied in college? I'm curious about how that started.
I literally tripped and fell. I was in a position that I wasn't happy with, and I was working for a manufacturing organization, and I was in customer service, and I really just wasn't happy. And a headhunter called me, and it was a little unusual because he was an engineering headhunter. And I said, for me, engineering, I'm not that much. He goes, no, I got this thing that I want you to go and check out. And I came in, and he said, I want you to interview for this organization called Connor's Exhibition Group and everything. I said, well, I don't know anything about it. He goes, just go. Well, the short story is that I went in for the interview and I liked it, and I saw that the vice president liked me, so I accepted the job. He never offered me the job. I accepted the job. I said, okay, I'm ready to start on Monday. Do you want me? And he said, oh, no, we have a few more interviews and things, and we'll let you know. Well, before I got home from the interview, they called and they said, yeah, we do want you to start on Monday. So So that's how I got into the industry. And the rest is I fell in love with the industry. It really is lights, camera, action, it's build up and it's creating some again and again. And there's always a twist. There's always excitement and there's, business is transacted there. So I've seen companies that have started with a widget get sold for millions and millions of dollars and, companies that may have not made it, on it. So it's exciting. We're in Las Vegas with Indoor AgCon, but I've done events in New York, Chicago, Miami, across Singapore. We even did Indoor Ag in Singapore 1 year. So every city is different, and it's not like throwing a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese or something like that where you just call up and get there's a lot of details that go into it. And, the devil is in the details, but if you know those details and get through them, it's a great environment. So
I'm curious, Brian, when you got that job, that was your first foray into the event space. How many years passed, or what was the path for you to start to figure out, that this is something you wanted to do on your own, start your own company and start to, sponsor and throw your own events?
Connor's Exhibition Group was the company that I worked for, and the show that I was born onto was the National Hardware Show. And within a few years of me working on that, it was actually the third largest trade show in North America. So I got a lot of experience on it, and I worked for them. They were purchased by the Reed Exhibition Group. But then I left. I started there in 1988 and I left in 1994, honestly, because it was very corporate and I saw the corporate ladder, and the corporate ceiling. And I just decided, at that time I was married with children hadn't come yet and everything, but I was getting married. And we saw an opportunity. My wife was working in the same industry. That's where I met her. And we had an opportunity where she had a job and we thought, well, I didn't want to do the corporate thing anymore. Can we just try and start a little company? And it worked. I left and started contracting to help organizations do things. And we launched a couple of shows and things, some that worked and some that didn't. But, that's the education of entrepreneurship. And eventually it worked for us to have contracts and then launch trade shows. I've worked in the gourmet food industry in the trade show event. We did an event. One of the first successes I had was we launched an event called SATCON, SATCON, which was Satellite Application Technology. So they say this isn't rocket science. Well, this was rocket science, honestly. And it turned into a great event. It was satellite communications, but the biggest thing that hit it back then was, government and broadcasters. So we actually morphed it from satellites into a broadcasting show at the Javits Center in New York City. And that's where we held it. And eventually we sold it to NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been there as well.
They're an enormous organization. And it still exists. The name has changed. I think they call it NAB East now. And it's the largest broadcasting event on the East Coast right now. Of course, in the country, they own the largest one in Vegas. So it's been exciting. It's been, a great education because, as I mentioned earlier, putting on a good event is a lot of details on it. There's a lot of things you have to make sure, lights, camera, action, signs, registration. Everybody's name has to be spelled correctly and registered. And, the building has to be right. Hotel rooms it's a separate business just to make sure everybody can get a hotel room or, that I'm kind of a stickler at times on times for conferences. If we say we're going to start at 9, I'll give you till 9:03. Everything. But to the same thing, I'm checking mics at 7 a.m. because something's going to go wrong between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and you better be ready for it. So but check the mics at 7 and things to be sure everything's ready so that you can handle, what's going on. It's, again, the details for a good conference and a good trade show. There's a lot of them, and you don't just do it in, people think, oh, you take all year to do this? Yeah, we do take all year to do this. For the one coming up, we're sold beyond where we were just a couple of months ago with the event and things. So there's a lot of activities and things that have to happen.
So how many would you estimate events you've put on since you started your own company?
I lost count, Harry. I lost count. I have some friends in the industry, and we were trying to come up with that number, and we couldn't. So we were even just trying to figure out how many times we've been to Vegas alone, and we couldn't come up with a number just the times we've been in. Because there are times that I've been into Vegas at events. Some people go once or twice in their life. There's times that we were going, 6 or 8 times a year. And there are times, being from New York, if you have meetings that I've literally numerous times gotten on a plane in the morning, fly out to Vegas, have a meeting, have dinner, have a breakfast meeting, and fly home, not even on the ground 24 hours. So we basically fly. My kids say, Dad, you flew to Vegas for dinner? And you turn around and you think, well, yeah, I did.
Yeah. The good thing about Vegas is there's always a ton of cheap flights in and out. So,
well, with the price of oil these days, that's it's starting to go up. So, but yeah, there's.
So I'm really curious, Brian, with all your experience and all the events you've put on, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into Indoor Icon, but can you tell a story about, we'll do both sides. First is one that didn't go so well. You don't have to get into specifics if you don't want to, but I'm just curious because it's all about ups and downs, in business. And I'm wondering if there's one that comes to mind and it didn't go well and what happened.
I'll do two quick ones if it's okay. I'll do first. There was one.
Yeah.
We were doing the International Fancy Food Show in San Francisco. And if you know San Francisco at all, the Moscone Center is on, I think it's on 4th Street or whatever it is on. And we were using both sides of the street. And a protest started and I was on a TV camera, got caught, talking to an 8-foot tall goose in the middle of the street because they were protesting goose liver pate. And there I was on the TV trying to do it. They had some validations and stuff. We took it, but being on TV on it. And, but then there was another one. I can remember we were in Vegas putting on a show and we needed to get a jet onto the show floor. It was a brand new Raytheon. Wow. At that time, it was $12 million. So it has to fly into McCarran, which is Harry Reid now, and they have to defuel it, and then they have to get a special tug, as they call, and tug it up the street to get it to the convention center. So we're going along and we're kind of following it along, and we have to go by a number of bars on the way. And there's people it's like 2:00 in the morning. People are coming out of the bars looking as, am I really seeing an airplane come up the street? Well, yes, you are. But the funny thing about it is that we get to the door and the door is 48 feet wide and the plane is 53.
Oh, no.
So, but these guys are experts. They actually tipped it in. They put the nose in and actually it started going in nose first and everything. And at a certain point, they turn it and flip it and backed it in. And I was like, well, another round, please. And everything. And they got it in and we, and it was great. It was wonderful. There's, all kinds of stories, some good, some bad and things, because you can't put thousands of people together and have everybody happy. We try, but there's medical issues that pop and things that happen on show floors. So you have to be ready, at all times. And there's sometimes you never know what's going to happen and things, you have to have medics there because, people even, from, a scratch with a Band-Aid to more severe things that have happened. I think so, but it's,
allergic reactions or accidents or
heart attacks, epileptic seizures.
Yeah.
Cause we did gaming shows and the flashing lights will react on folks. I think so. There's a lot of things that have happened, but the stories for me, it's fun. I can't see myself ever doing anything else on it. So it's, it gets in your blood and it's a lot of fun producing events. And the team that I work with, we mentioned Suzanne Pruitt. There's another person, a woman who just called me while we were on, Dawn Jeffrey. She's an expert in there. Nancy, I've known for many years. Nancy Hallberg thinks has been great. I've met a lot of people. Jim Pantaleo, who has helped us tremendously. And, folks like that have just been, Kyle Barnett is taking taking over the reins to helping us develop content and things. So these folks, without this path, I wouldn't know. And all along the path, there's so many people I've met. It's been a tremendous sector.
So talk to me a little bit about your relationship with Indoor Icon. When did that start? Like, how did it get on your radar even? I'm just curious, how that happens. Well,
we purchased Indoor Icon in December of 2018. And, I mentioned earlier the SatCon event that we did. And, when I'm kind of half kidding when I say it actually was rocket science, it was a lot of folks that were building, satellites and sending them up to the sky. So we worked with a lot of engineering folks and they were building something new. The satellites, had been in place, for communications with the US government and things along that lines. But then it was getting more into broadcasting. And what happened with Indoor Ag is I saw almost a parallel there because it's a growing sector of something new that's developing and, farms producing, agriculture, things, indoors and everything. So, wow, this looks a little similar to what I was doing before because there's a lot of things that have to happen to make it work. And
Yeah.
so that was the relationship for me. And I saw it in the satellite sector where things have to go in the right direction and things. And I'm seeing the same thing here. As indoor farms develop, there's a lot that goes into them. A budget has to be created. I almost look at it as train cars. They have to be lined up correctly and all going in the same direction, because if one is off kilter, well, that's going to be a problem on here. Everything from, the building itself, whether it's a greenhouse or, an old warehouse that you're converting, from substrates to seeds to watering to,
Sure.
what product are you going to produce? Who are you going to sell it to on it? And so all of that has to be developed into a plan, including pricing and cost and everything. And so all of those items have to be developed into a plan before you go. Well, you might be able to jump in somewhere in between, but entrepreneurship is really evaluating the risk or taking an opportunity. But things have to line up and all happen in the right direction for success.
How much has this been a learning experience for you about the vertical farming industry?
A lot. When I was a kid, I never remember a time of not having a garden in my backyard. My dad, God rest his soul, and everything. I could remember before I could walk, there was a garden in the backyard. We would grow tomatoes and different products and peppers and things my father would do. And I still have one today. And, my father taught me how to garden and things. So as far as specifically to indoor ag, it's a whole new renaissance looking at what can be done. I'm seeing some of the things that go on. When I mention indoor ag, most times people who aren't aware of what's going on say, oh, you're into marijuana, growing marijuana. Well, that's, that's kind of the small end of it. Not everybody is into marijuana, but everybody's into eating. So that's why we kind of watch it. So to see what's happening and the way the trays and the rolls and just thinking of a warehouse filled with farms and, farming things and the way it can grow indoors and, sustainability and the cheer of local and fresh that folks want. This is the indoor ag is answering an awful lot of questions, and help a lot of folks. Those are just some of it, but also, climate change and fires and wind and drought areas, things that are happening. This helps answer a lot of questions.
Yeah. So 2018, you purchased Indoor AgCon. So talk about that journey, building that up. And I'm curious about what you look for in an event when you decide to either, purchase it or partner with it. I'm sure there's financials and opportunities that you look at as well, but you probably have a vision for where you can take it.
I mentioned the satellite event that we did. It was an exciting time. That was in the way, the actual first thing that put me onto the satellite industry is I saw an article in USA Today that said Bill Gates invests $13 billion in teledesic. Well, nobody even knows what teledesic was anymore. And frankly, it didn't work. And we believe that we actually made more money on the satellites than Bill Gates did. So, it was the same kind of opportunity here where we saw something that we feel, was helping folks. At that time was communication, and now it's, agriculture and growing. And I think so we saw it. And so, we did purchase it in December of 2018. And 5 weeks later, that was early, 5 weeks later in January. So even through the holidays, we found ourselves in Singapore on the other side of the planet working on it. And so it was rush. And then we came back and we realized that we had to have an event in May because we were there, but we didn't have a venue or anything to do. So again, we were rush. We signed agreements in February to do an event in May to do. So we were really rushing on it. So as soon as we concluded that event, I kind of said to our team, all right, time out. All right, we have to take a breath here because we wanted to really look at it. And one of the first things I looked at was I thought to myself and our team, and I said, how can we do Singapore when we don't have under control what we are here in the United States and everything? So why don't we forego Singapore for now? It was part of the purchase and things and everything. So we decided not to do that. And what we decided to do is, okay, we're going to reset everything because it was a different event in 2018 and 2019 when we first got it. There was a lot of manufacturers and, talking to manufacturers, which is great on it. But I felt that it needed something more than that. Talking to manufacturers is great, but there's no real commerce going on. We needed to bring in, in events, it's a buying and selling arena and a networking area, and that's what they're looking to do. So we got everything ready, and, through the summer of 2019 into the fall into January of 2020, and we're all ready to go in 2020 when the great pandemic stepped up and pushed us right out the window again. So, there's no sense in going on that. Everybody knows, what was happening with the pandemic and things. So we had to postpone. And when we postponed, it was very tough everybody got a little deflated feeling with the pandemic, no matter what they did. And so, sure. When we were all excited about having the new environment and some of the new relationships that we created was great. But so we had to postpone 2020. And in the meantime, I have a relationship with a number of other event producers. And I know the folks that I'm friends with, a lot of folks in a lot of different sectors, and know the folks that were producing the National Grocer Show. So one morning when I was having coffee and things, I called my friend and I said, hey, I think there might be an opportunity for us to co-locate and things. And just then I spilt my coffee a little bit. And, right behind that, I spoke to my friend and I said, what would you think of us co-locating together? And then she spilled her coffee. And then and she said, oh my God, Bri, that's exactly what we're looking for. So the short story is, okay, here we go. We're going off in my mind and in their mind. We're not competitors. We should be allies. The indoor agriculture, the end of agriculture is harvest and sale. You have to sell it to it. So grocers are a big consumer and they have their thumb on the pulse of what the consumer wants. I think so. It was an opportunity for us to kind of get together and build a relationship with the National Grocers Association. So we're all set to do it in the spring of 21. And we actually got pushed out again a little bit because of COVID, and the National Grocers had to move into another venue. We couldn't fit alongside. So we said, okay, let's just take another time out and everything, where they went their way and we went into Orlando in October of 21. And then we decided to come back together. We said, we're getting back together again. And that's what we did, just a few months ago at Caesars Forum. So, and along the way, what we've done is we've created relationships, and we've created a board. Like, Greg Ferrara is the executive director of the National Grocers Association. He's on our board and, a great consultant on it. So, that's what we're looking to do. The part of the story is that it was a show where manufacturers were speaking to manufacturers, and what we've morphed it in is to really an event where commerce can happen. It's an important arena for manufacturers to talk to folks, and we deliver what we believe is the best content on there, and that brings in the farmers and grocers and things, and people who are actually use the equipment and things. So it's worked. We were talking earlier about my dad and farming and that kind of thing, but what I am here is I'm not someone who's in agriculture deeply and things. I'm an event person who understands it and does things, and our charge is to bring the buyers, sellers together to network and find out what went right. But most of the time, finding out what went wrong is more important than what went right. And where's the money? Department of Agriculture, are they giving out money? Is it going to the indoor forks, or they're going to the traditional farmers and things? So there's a lot of these questions and answers, and folks coming in, and whether they own a farm or they're looking to start one or things, they need the answers. And we believe we're the de facto arena right now to come in and learn and see and put everything together to make it happen.
Yeah. You mentioned the bringing people onto the board. Is that one aspect of, in your prior experience with events, that's important in terms of having those subject matter experts, those leaders of the industry to provide that sounding board for you when you create these types of events?
100%. I mentioned Greg Ferrara. There's other folks from other sectors that we've been working with on it, but they have their finger on the pulse of what's going to happen not only today, but in 5 years from now. What are they hearing from, the other growers or grocers or the cannabis sector or any of these sectors, the buildings. We were actually at one point going to co-locate with the International Shopping Center Council that is all about shopping centers. Like, what are you doing with shopping centers? Well, there's one facility, and, caution memory in use here, that I believe it's in Culver City or just outside of Chicago. There's a Target store that's been redeveloped into an indoor farm. Well, doesn't that make sense? If you're going to a facility like that where you can get local and fresh produce, why not? And use the products that way.
What's interesting is that when you get these people from different industries, there is that overlap because, the grocers association that was present at, where you did the co-location, to your, exactly what you just said, the fact that in vertical farming, you're creating the produce, you're going to have to market it, you're going to have to sell it. And there's going to be an overlap of some of the same challenges that people face. And there's learnings that can be helpful on both sides.
Here, that gets to when I mentioned earlier. It's like a train and a bunch of cars. They have to be loaded and set correctly. You can't have the caboose out front or it's going off the track. And so, if you're building a farm, in my mind, is, where do you start? Do you start at building it, or do you start on who your customer is going to be? Are you selling it to a restaurant? Are you going direct to consumer? Are you going to, grocers, or who's your thing? So, and then you have to line up the trains a long time, and you might have to put one in front of the other to make it happen. Packaging and every other portion or segment of the business has to be evaluated. There's cost to everything. So even before you grow anything or sell anything, is there going to be profit at the end? Maybe not if you're just starting in things and you want to get investors in and everything. But eventually, a profit has to be seen, somewhere through the process on it.
So when I imagine for these types of events, and this is similar to myself because I own an agency, so a podcast productions agency, and I'm big on procedures, checklists, standard operating procedures, and also I come from the project management world. I worked in marketing at JP Morgan Chase and E-Trade, so bigger corporations that had teams. And this concept of the postmortem was always really helpful when we had big projects. And I imagine for events, getting the group together and saying what worked, what didn't, what can we change, what was helpful. For each time one of these is run is probably a critical, important phase in everything you do.
Critical. And we like to talk to folks as well and get their input. We love hearing, boy, you guys did a great job and everything. And we love hearing that. But more important is tell me what went wrong. Tell me what you didn't like. Because if you tell me everything was great and everything, great, we'll do it again. But, we are always looking for input on how to grow, how to change, how to make it better. Because, even our tagline here was, growing your business and things. So this is a business, and we look at it, not just the event as a business, but how do we make this business work better? We've been working with the folks from Plenty, Aero Farms, and, the usual suspects there, those types, App Harvest, all those types of folks who are, deep into the sector and things, they have great stories. Some of them good, some of them bad, and or learning experience. I shouldn't even say bad. They're learning experiences because, we pick up the flag and keep moving it forward.
Yeah. And so what were some of the takeaways from the recent event in Vegas?
You know what? Here was a complete fumble on my part is we had lunch for folks. We didn't have a vegan option. That was kind of like a pie in the face kind of scenario and things, and embarrassing that we didn't have that. But, that's one of the things that, we're at an agriculture event where people are there and you don't have a vegan option, that's, from the facility and things. And that's, we're so concentrated on the experience and folks having, a good time, or they're having, whatever the experience is and everything. But that one little thing was like, that was not good and everything. So, the content was great. The relationships, the event is growing. When we were in Orlando, we had 50 booths on the event. Usually you want a full year run on it, but, we didn't. We had to go again in February/March there. We had 80 booths on. And right now, for next year, we're always hoping to get like 70% and things. Well, we're gone from 80. We already have 120 sold for next year, and more folks coming on. We're going to top out at about 150 booths or more. But, wow. But that's a testament to, Suzanne and Dawn and Nancy and the team and Jim Pantaleo and Kyle, all helping us, grow the event, because it's like the engine of a car. All the pistons have to fire in the right order to make it work. Or, I always try to say, well, when we're alone and we're playing a violin and everything, it's all squeaky. But, when we get there, it has to sound like a symphony. So that's what our goal is.
So I asked you for some of the not so memorable moments. So on the flip side of that, I imagine the beauty of events, and I've experienced it from my corporate days. I would attend the business intelligence conferences, so really corporate stuff. And then in the podcasting world, I've attended multiple podcasting conferences. I'm friends with some of the organizers of the podcast movement. So, and I've made friends that are, lifetime friends. And it's a very interesting dynamic. For me, I call it like a high school reunion, because sometimes you go and you'll see them once a year and you won't see them anywhere any other time. And as you start to build, it starts to become like a family. We're headed to Podfest in Orlando, run by my friend Chris Krimitsos. And the reason we go every year, and we missed it the past two, is because it's very community. We go and they do a great job. They do a gratitude ceremony. It gets harder and harder to do the bigger it gets, but everyone gets 30 seconds to come up and saying, what are they most grateful for the past 2 or 3 days? And then when you start hearing people in their own voices, like, oh, I met this person, or I had a great conversation, it really like a nice kumbaya feeling, which is hard to do in a big event. So I'm really, I'm all for like the magic that can happen at conferences. And I'm wondering if there's some like highlights of all the ones you've been to where you've had some like fond memories.
It's pretty much right in line with what you've mentioned. It's friends, it's shaking hands, it's putting together. And actually, I get a thrill out of watching business grow. Things that, were, one thing one year, and then the next year go, holy cow, look at that thing and how it's grown. I met with, we were putting together some of the CEOs of indoor agriculture together with, some of the folks over at National Grocers and things. And we want to be doing more of those types of things. So, and if that particular sector, not as many people came, but even the folks just in indoor agriculture that met, they were saying, wow, it's great to see you. Even though we're competitors, we're on the same field here and we're shaking hands. And, I noticed that you're targeting this area and that area and why and things. So folks who don't get the opportunity to meet and talk, just standing around with a beer in their hand, chatting for a few minutes was great. We did a pre-event for our speakers and some VIPs at Top Golf, and I had never been to Top Golf in Vegas before, but
I was there.
Oh, yeah. Right, correct. And so, what did you think of Top Golf? I mean, I thought it was great. So.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I'm not a golfer, but honestly, what's funny about it is if you get a good conversation, it's a win. And I got to speak to, I forget the gentleman's name, but from the gentleman from Walmart.
Yes.
Who is, coordinating all the events happening and what Walmart is doing, which was totally random because he wasn't playing. He wasn't assigned to a group. And we just happened to strike up a conversation. My partner, Natalie, was there, and the three of us were just chatting. And now I've reached out to him and he's not ready to tell their story yet, but he's going to come on the show. And that wouldn't have happened had it not been for meeting there. So.
Yeah, that's what it's about. That's really what it's about, is putting folks together. And it's, I'll mention the fancy food show again. There was so many people used to come to us. It goes, well, why don't you put the cheese in one aisle, the chocolate aisle in another aisle, and the mustard and everything in an aisle so people can get it easy. We're not doing that and everything, because people who go to the cheese, they go to cheese and turn around. They forgot that they needed to pick up pasta and they needed mustard and things to go with it. So you mix it together for the exact reason you just mentioned on it. Another thing I wanted to mention too is, during the pandemic, we did our indoor ag conversations on it. And what that was about is we wanted to make sure that we were in touch with the community and just not go away. And a lot of event producers were producing these things that were going all day long and everything. And, they were days long, and they were trying to reproduce a trade show, through the magic of Zoom and the computers and things. And we thought, well, what are we going to do? And our indoor ag con, we wanted to keep the name out there and deliver good content because that's what we're known for. Yeah. So that's where indoor ag conversations, came up. I think so. They were an hour long. We typically started at 2:00 in the afternoon, and we started at 2:00. When we said 2:00, bam, off we go. And at 2:45, we're messaging folks that are speaking, saying, okay, it is now time for questions for 15 minutes. 15 minutes at 3:00, we're going, because the people's time is valuable on it. And it worked great. We're getting all kind of accolades. That's starting up again. I think we're going to have one on June 1st is coming up. So our conversations, because people enjoyed it. 1 hour of in-depth, concentrated information delivered in an hour and things, so that you can get on, get off. It's not going to take your whole day and just block the time for that particular hour and go. And then you have the rest of the day to yourself. So, folks loved it. We did them at no charge and everything at that time, just to, say, here we are, indoor ag conversations, and get ready to come see us when we're live.
Yeah. It's a great way, because I think part of the challenge with the events, especially ones that only run once a year, is you want to keep that enthusiasm. Your team is obviously working furiously behind the scenes to make sure like what else needs to be done. And it is a full-time job to make sure you can replicate and improve the experience, but also the attendees, you do have that community feel and you don't want to lose it within those 11 months, for the next one. So that's a great idea.
Absolutely. We don't have the full schedule out, but I know Suzanne we're locked and loaded for June 1st. There's another one coming behind it, and there'll be more coming. We were trying to do 2 to 3 a month, during the pandemic and things, but now we're going to be strategic about it and things, and a lot of it is, starter information. And then the balance of the information is delivered at the event. And, that we're going to be at Caesars Forum February 27th to 28th and 23rd, again, co-locating with the National Grocers again. So we're confident that our content, we always want to, we're going to be talking to our board, telling us what we should be talking about, things for the future, converting that into a program, then getting folks to speak against the program and things in multiple rooms and things. So there's a lot of exciting things that we're getting ready, and, a lot of new things that, I like to do things that I call them head turners. I think that going with National Grocers was a head turner. People like, okay, people do events within their own sector and it's about this and everything. Well,
sure.
Well, what does that mean? How does that work? It sounds really good. So, and it worked really well. So that's why we're going to do it again, this year, and then we'll look beyond.
I'll reach out to Suzanne for my other passion, which started way before podcasting, is DJing. So, well, maybe we can do
There you go. Yeah, we're in for that. That'd
be fun. So, Brian, I do want to I'd be remiss, I think, if I didn't ask you about the pandemic, especially since you're in the event space. And when you think about industries that were the hardest hit, hospitality, and live events is literally right up there. So, without going too far down the rabbit hole, I'm just curious what, when you look back at it, because it's easier to do that now, 2020, hindsight is 2020. What did that experience teach you, or what did you learn in terms of like resilience? And it's probably not something that anyone was prepared for by any means, but, how did you as a leader, work through that? What you pull from, and, what are your takeaways now that it's been like 2 years past?
I wasn't a Boy Scout, but their motto is be prepared things. And it's very difficult to be prepared for something like a pandemic on it. And, look, I feel for restaurants and airlines and you feel a lot, for what they all went through and things. But frankly, our industry was even more than that. We were not allowed to meet at all, zero. So it was a full break stop on it. I remember on Friday the 13th, I was on the phone with the mayor's office of San Diego because we had an event coming up the 23rd to the 27th. So in 2 weeks. And, the mayor's office said to me boldly and frankly at that point, "Brother, there's no more conversation. You're not getting the building," and everything. So now we had all kinds of things already on the way. So we had to stop trucks and turn trucks around things. So a full stop, no business, complete stop to zero. The thought process was, well, maybe in April we can pick this back up in June, July, August, September. And the clock just kept on ticking and things. So, you have to be nimble. There's two things I say to our team at times. It's, if we run into a problem, it's not the problem. It's how you resolve it and get on the other side. And that was conversations. And I also told them that, the road to success is not a super highway. You're not going there. It's a goat path. And if you can traverse the mountain and go up the mountain the way the goat does and everything from pillar to post and things, you can make it to the top and things. And that's what we're looking at. So, how do we, it's like bumper cars, you hit with a bumper car and it's fun and all that kind of, you bounce off, well, you turn the wheel and then you go again and you bounce again. So if you're willing to do that, especially in a small organization or a growing arena, you can get there, but you have to be prepared and you have to really turn your brain a bit at times and everything. Because if you keep on doing the same old thing and everything, folks might get a little tired of it or it just might not work. So be prepared and try to think outside of the box. When you hit something, it might be an opportunity, not just, a problem. And frankly, that's what happened with conversations. I'm not even sure. I think one day we were just thinking, well, conversations. Well, wait a minute. We're into our ag con. How about conversations and things and everything? And we were saying it to some people, and they're going, "How did you think of that?" Well, It was just, maybe we were on the bar stool when we thought of it, but yeah, it was just something that just popped for us and worked very well. And we were getting hundreds of people, coming on it and staying on the hour, and they were happy that they could come on, learn something quick. The only ones we did do investment at one time for conversations, and that was in 6 segments over 2 half days. So we did them in the afternoon on 2 half days, because it's impossible to cover finance in one session. Because, are you an entrepreneur? Do you need A level, B level? Are you want crowdfunding? Do you need 1 million or do you need $100 million? Because it's a different arena. And that was the one that went a little bit longer. But again, folks, Ron, we were encouraging people, whether you were small, you better listen to all of these to listen to what the big guys are doing. And at the same time, what we were telling the big guys is, what, big guys and everything, you better keep an eye and be on all these from the beginning, because all these smaller guys, their goal is to eat your lunch. So it's easier if it's plainly stated that this is the arena and how business in the world happens. And it's the same thing in indoor agriculture. That there's going to be folks that invest and make it. There's going to be some, though, and that might be, acquired or not make it as so well. And again, I believe some of the best learning moments are when things go wrong.
Yeah, well said. And I mentioned it to Suzanne, but I'll have a follow-up, because if you're not doing it already, make sure you get those out in public in a podcast format as well, because you've already created the content. And the beauty of podcasts is you can listen to them on the go. You don't have to be in front of a screen. You can listen to them, pause whenever you want to. So repurpose that content. Make sure you've created it once, it's adding value, and just make sure you get it out there far and wide.
Let's find a way for work together here, Harry.
Yeah. So where did you learn this resilience, Brian?
I think it was from my older brother.
Okay.
No, because I come from a very close family, and there's a lot of things that happens in everyone's life. I have success and tragedy in my life, just like everybody. So I think part of it is understanding things and shouldering things from a big supportive family, and we kind of work together. If somebody needs an assistance, if we think of it as like lifting a table, if it starts to slip on one side, we kind of roll over and help each other. Again, I have a family that's unbelievable that have helped me in times of trouble and things. So it's really, finding a way to get to the other side and trying to think outside of the box. When you hit the wall, back up a little bit, take another look at it, and maybe you have to go a little bit to the right or the left and then move forward, because there's, a lot of T's in the road and everything. Do you go left or you go right and things? And
sounds like the Jet story from the beginning.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, when the jet won't go through the door, the show must go on.
But the other thing that comes to mind is this idea of you having the supportive family. And I think inherently what you've done through your organizations and through your businesses, and you create a family yourself, and Indoor AgCon is its own family. And I think that it must permeate, like your experiences with your family are translating into the relationship you have with your team.
It's 100%. It is a family. I mentioned Jim and Suzanne and Dawn and Kyle and Nancy and me, and Terry is another person who helping as well. I rely on, earlier today, I was speaking with a friend of mine for 30 years. He is in the event industry, and we're just calling each other, for, frank consultations, or what would you do here? How would you do here? And can we work together? Or, what's new? So, I have, my own family. I have the indoor ag family. I have industry families and things. So it's wonderful. You could probably tell in my tone that this is a sector that I fell into and I love. It's lights, camera, action. There's success, there's failure, and trying to do it right. And I can tell you that next year we will have vegan lunches at San Diego. Vegas.
Yeah, it's all a function of being able to recognize your mistakes and then moving on from them and just getting better next time.
It's not the problem, it's how you handle it. It really, There was an event a couple of weeks ago, and the catering, we were going to have, I think it was a lunch for, oh no, it was a reception. And suddenly we realized that the catering company put on the wrong date, and they said, no, this event is tomorrow. No, it's not. It starts in half an hour. So How do you fix it? Well, first thing you do is you get a couple of cases of soft drinks and you wheel them in on ice while they're fire up the ovens, and you put in a couple of things, some bags of chips and everything, and the audience never even knew what happened on it because we were able to kind of do it. But again, it's not the situation; it's how do you handle it. And there used to be a commercial that said, "Never let them see you sweat."
Never let them see you sweat. That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
And that's it. Test the mics before they get up there. So.
Yes, exactly. Have that checklist, that flight checklist when pilots take off. I mean, there's a book called The Checklist Manifesto that talks about the 150 things they have to literally make sure are checked off before that plane leaves the ground.
It's absolutely the same. The conference will start at 9. We're there at least by 7, and some of the staff is usually there by 6:15 because the folks are registering, those types of things. We want to make sure that when they walk in, people don't want to wait in lines. So you make sure that the badges, well, here we go. Do you print them out ahead of time? My name is spelled wrong. How do we correct it? Okay, you come over here. All the processes of things, and it's experience. And we have a wonderful, experienced team.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I really enjoyed this conversation. I love your backstory. I love your energy and your enthusiasm. It's clear you're doing what you were meant to do.
Ta-da!
And and I'm glad to hear that it lights you up every day, and it feels like it's something you'll be doing for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. I don't know that I could ever do anything else. And it truly is the team. Suzanne, Dawn, Nancy, Kyle, and Jim, and Terry, and the extended teams too, because we work closely with, Caesar's Forum. There's a lot of folks that work there, the national grocers, our board members and things, and, and morphing it into indirect conversations. So there's a lot of things that we do that we really enjoy. We enjoy the industry, the sector, just meeting, all the folks in the industry. Everybody's so nice. It's really good. Where there's some sectors that are cutthroat, on it, where people don't want to do things, but this industry is really lighting up, and it's, not only the industry, but their faces as well.
Yeah. So given that you know who the audience is for this podcast, is there a specific ask you have for the listeners of the show?
Listen to Indoor Ag Conversations. I think you're going to like that. Watch for our registration. We're going to open up our registration pretty soon, usually, and it's pretty early. Probably, I'm going to say June 1st, but it might be like June 15th that we have things register. So, and it's always best to register early because you save more and everything. We can count on things and everything. So, yes. But yeah, we'd love to see you. Stop by, say hello to us and everything. We love to shake hands, and now that we can shake hands again, and fist bump, exactly. Wear masks or
elbow bump.
We are so open and things. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask or anything. We do encourage folks to get along, and hopefully the pandemic is close to being in the back window. So we want to do that, but share, meet people, and when you go to events, the core thing to do is to meet people. Go and shake hands and introduce yourself.
Get out of your comfort zone.
Exactly, and network. This business is most business is done by networking. So come on in, come on by, and network. That's it's doing a service to yourself. We love it because people actually take time out of their business to work on their business when they come to Indoor AgCon.
Yeah. And I think we can chat offline about some ideas that I've seen that have worked at others' conferences. A Podcast Movement had red, yellow, and green buttons that you could wear prominently to indicate whether you wanted no contact, a fist bump, or you're a hugger. So you could kind of, visually communicate that to people as well, which I thought was cool.
We were looking into wristbands to accomplish the same thing on it. So absolutely. But bottom line is it's a shower of information and things. So the best thing to do is kind of get out a bucket and collect as much as you can and everything. So, good information is great. Bad information is great too. To at least know what you don't want to do.
Yeah. So the website is indoor.ag. We'll coordinate with Suzanne to make sure there's a special offer for listeners of the show as well, because we did that last time, and we had I had someone who was a regular listener to the show and attended Indoor Ag because of my recommending it. And then he wrote me this long email and he said, "Thank you for mentioning the conference. I hadn't heard about it. I went. I had a good time." So that made me feel really good as well.
Absolutely. We're open arms. Let us know, and let us know what we're doing right. Let us know what we're doing wrong. If you have a suggestion on content and everything, we're always, because we want to deliver what everyone would like to hear.
Perfect. So indoor.ag is the site. Anywhere else you want to direct folks to or have them connect with you at all?
No, that's it. Everything will be there for, conversations. We do content too. So you watch for our information. Suzanne sends out a newsletter. So we're doing newsletters. We're doing indoor ag conversations and the live event. And, you never know, some other things might be popping up one of these days. So.
Yeah. And so you have time in between now and the next event to work on your poker skills as well, which I'm going to be doing.
I'm in Vegas. I mentioned I've been to Vegas more than I can count. I don't gamble at all, actually.
I'm a
oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. So
I buy a lottery ticket when it's 300 million. So.
Well, thanks again, Brian. I really enjoyed our conversation and you spending time with us.
Great. You too. Thanks, Harry. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks to Brian for coming on the show. Always appreciate the hour my guests share with me and with you and opening up themselves and sharing a bit of their personal story and their business journey, which is very inspiring. And it's a testament to all the hard work that they've put in to get to this point in their careers. So I just love having these conversations. Special thanks to our Season 5 title sponsor, Cultivated. If you are looking into a vertical farm or don't know where to start or which technology would suit your needs, reach out to them today. Best of all, their service is free because they work on behalf of their partners. Learn more at cultivated.com, and that's spelled CULTIVATD.com. Just leave out that last E. And don't forget to tell them Harry sent you. Podcast production and marketing provided by Fullcast. Learn more at fullcast.co. And as a reminder, if you're enjoying this show, leave us a rating and a review at ratethispodcast.com/VFP, and we'll be sure to read that out on a future episode. Nothing would make my day more. Tune in next week for my conversation with yet another fascinating leader from the world of vertical farming, Jamie Burrows, CEO of Vertical Future. Until we meet again, here's to your health.
Thanks for listening. To read the full show notes for this episode, which includes any links mentioned in the episode, as well as a full show transcription, visit verticalfarmingpodcast.com. There, you can sign up for our email list to be notified when new episodes are published.